In the forests of the Congo Free State, soldiers were required to bring back a severed human hand for every cartridge they fired, and baskets of hands became the defining symbol of a regime built on rubber. It began with a tree. Rubber's primary natural source is the latex of Hevea brasiliensis, the para-rubber tree native to the Amazon basin. For centuries, this milky sap that seeped from its wounded bark was little more than a curiosity of the forest, useful and strange, but not yet the engine of an empire. What could turn the tears of a tree into a substance worth killing for? The answer lay not in the Amazon, but in a workshop in the United States. Charles Goodyear was granted a U.S. patent for the vulcanization of rubber on the 15th of June, 1844, patent number 3633. Vulcanization was the process that made rubber stable, durable, useful in heat and cold alike. Oxford's Q profile of Hevea states plainly that the ability to mold and vulcanize rubber transformed it from a botanical curiosity to a vital industrial raw material. But there is a bitter irony at the very origin of this fortune. Goodyear, the man who founded a major industry, died in 1860, roughly $200,000 in debt. The material he perfected would make others unimaginably rich. It would also, as that same Q profile records without flinching, be transformed at the cost of millions of lives in Amazonian and Congolian commerce. That sentence is the whole story in miniature. The question now is how a stable, moldable substance became something the modern world could not live without. Part 1. The wheel that wanted air. The demand did not arrive all at once. It arrived on wheels. In the 1840s, the Scotsman Robert William Thomson had already patented a pneumatic tire, a tire filled with air. But the world was not yet ready for it, and the idea faded. Then, decades later, John Boyd Dunlop, a Scottish veterinarian working in Belfast, developed a practical pneumatic tire for his son's tricycle and patented it on the 7th of December, 1888. It was a small domestic act of ingenuity, a father trying to give his child a smoother ride. Dunlop's patent would later be ruled invalid precisely because of Thomson's earlier prior art. And yet, the National Inventors Hall of Fame still recognizes Dunlop as an inventor of the pneumatic tire because it was his version that met its moment. That moment was the bicycle craze. And behind the bicycle came the automobile. Suddenly, every wheel in the industrializing world wanted a cushion of air wrapped in rubber. Demand for that Amazonian latex went vertical. Here is the tension the rest of this story turns on. When a raw material suddenly becomes priceless, who pays the price? The answer would be written in the rainforests of 2 continents, in the bodies of people who never rode a bicycle and never owned a car. Part 2. A king's private property. The most notorious answer came from Central Africa. The Congo Free State, which existed from 1885 to 1908, was not a Belgian colony at all. It was the private property of one man, King Leopold II of Belgium. An entire territory and the millions of people living in it, held as personal real estate by a European monarch who never set foot there. To extract rubber from this vast estate, Leopold's administration built a forced labor system, and it was enforced by an armed body called the Force Publique, which numbered over 19,000 soldiers by the late 1890s. Villages were given rubber quotas. Failure to meet them brought punishment, and the punishment was designed to terrify. In the Congo Free State, soldiers were required to bring back a severed human hand for each cartridge they used. Baskets of hands became a defining symbol of the regime, and they were cut from men, women and children alike. It is important to sit with the reason behind this horror rather than merely the horror itself. The demand for hands was a bureaucratic accounting device, proof that bullets had not been wasted on hunting. Human beings were reduced to a line in a ledger, but such a system cannot stay hidden forever. The question was who, if anyone, would dare to look inside those baskets and tell the world what they held. Part 3. The weight of the ledger. The consequences of Leopold's rubber machine are almost impossible to fully grasp. Estimates of deaths in the Congo Free State reach roughly 10 million, with some studies suggesting about half the population perished. Historians debate that figure, and we should be honest that it is debated, not settled. But even the disagreement is over a catastrophe of a staggering scale. And this was not a distant African tragedy separate from the wider world. It flowed directly into the tires, the tubing, the insulation, the countless rubber goods of a booming industrial age. The forest of the Amazon had a parallel horror unfolding at the same time. During the Amazon rubber cycle, rubber barons enslaved and brutalized indigenous peoples, even as towns such as Manaus grew fabulously wealthy on the proceeds. Opera houses rose in the jungle, while communities in the deep forest were being destroyed. The pattern was the same on both continents: a remote, hard-to-monitor extraction zone, a desperate global appetite, and indigenous or colonized people with no power to refuse. Wealth pooled in distant cities and capitals. Suffering pooled among the tappers. Before we follow the men who tried to expose this, hold on to one uncomfortable idea. This was not a failure of the rubber system. This was the rubber system working exactly as designed. Part 4. The men who told the world. Change, when it came from documentation. A British official named Roger Casement was sent to investigate. His official report on Congo atrocities was published on the 12th of February 1904, and it confirmed the abuses. It was not rumor or hearsay, it was a formal account, on the record, difficult for governments to ignore. Casement did not stop at reporting. He and the campaigner E.D. Morel founded the Congo Reform Association, an organization built specifically to campaign against the abuses in the Congo Free State. It became one of the first great international human rights movements, turning private outrage into public, organized pressure. That pressure worked. The exposure forced Leopold to give up his private empire, and the Congo Free State came to an end in 1908. Across the Atlantic, similar scrutiny fell on the Amazon. The Putumayo genocide was driven by the rubber baron Julio Cesar Arana and his London-registered Peruvian Amazon Company. That company, operating in the Putumayo region, was investigated for atrocities against indigenous people. The fact that a company registered in London sat at the center of Amazonian killings shows how tightly the whole world was stitched into this trade. But even as reformers fought over how rubber was harvested, a quieter act, years earlier, had already set in motion the collapse of the entire wild rubber economy. To understand it, we have to go back to a single boat, a single man, and about 7. Part 5. The Seed Heist. 1,000 seeds. In 1876, an Englishman named Henry Wickham collected around 70,000 hevea seeds near Santarém in Brazil and delivered them to Kew Gardens on the 15th of June that year. Of that vast haul, only about 2,700 seeds actually germinated. It sounds like a modest scientific transfer. It was anything but. Brazil to this day regards Henry Wickham as a bio-pirate, the man whose seed transfer ended its rubber monopoly. Those few thousand surviving seedlings were the ancestors of the great rubber plantations of Asia, and the growth was explosive. Rubber acreage in Asia grew from just 15,000 acres in 1901 to 433,000 acres in 1907. Cultivated rubber, grown in orderly rows on plantations, could be harvested far more cheaply and reliably than latex tapped from wild trees scattered across the Amazon. By around 1913, cultivated Asian rubber surpassed Brazilian wild rubber entirely. The boom that had built opera houses in the jungle and financed baskets of severed hands began to collapse under the weight of ordinary agricultural competition. The monopoly that had seemed unbreakable, the source of so much wealth and so much suffering, was undone not by reformers or by revolution. Part 6, What the Latex Remembers. But by a handful of seeds carried across an ocean decades before. So what remains when the boom is over? The tree still weeps its latex, and rubber still moves the modern world. But the history is not neutral, and it should not be smoothed over. The same Oxford Q profile that celebrates rubber as a vital industrial raw material also records, in the same breath, that this transformation came at the cost of millions of lives in Amazonian and Congolian commerce. That honesty matters. Charles Goodyear died in debt, having made others rich. Dunlop is remembered as an inventor even though his patent was overturned. Wickham is honored in one country and condemned as a biopirate in another. History rarely hands us clean heroes, but some things are not ambiguous. The forced labor system of the Congo Free State, the baskets of hands cut from men, women, and children, the enslavement and brutalization of indigenous peoples across the Amazon, the Putumayo genocide driven by a London-registered company. These were real, and they were documented by the people who dared to look, from Casement's 1904 report to the Congo Reform Association he and Morel built. The next time you see a tire, remember that the smooth ride began with a wounded tree, and that between the tree and the wheel stood human beings whose names were never written in any ledger. Only their hands were counted. The story asks nothing of us except that we do not forget them. This film covers colonial violence, forced labor, and genocide. If this material is distressing, please reach out to a mental health support line in your country, or to organizations that document and support survivor and Indigenous communities. You are not alone, and help is available.